One of the most interesting things about the environment that I live in is that you can find plenty of natural materials that can really help you out in a survival situation. And one of those is a fungus that grows on dead or decomposing ash trees, and it's called the coal fungus, or the cramp ball, or its Latin name, Daldinia Concentrica. It dates back thousands of years and it's been used in fire lighting way back since man has been roaming this earth. Before I tell you more about how to light this fungus, let's go and see if we can find some out in the forest. So here we have, at the base of this dead, rotten ash tree, some cramp ball, the cramp ball fungus. And you can see here that this one's actually been eaten away, it's pretty rotten. And to be honest, no, yeah, when you crush it like that, that means it's fairly useless. Now I might be able to get a spark just on that dry layer, but to be honest it's too wet. Whenever it breaks away like that, there was a little bug in there, that means it's fairly useless. They're on the tree and you tap them and they're hard and not crumbly, that's when they're ready to harvest them to be used for fire lighting. Generally, when you find one Daldinia Concentrica, you will find a whole horde. And here on the underside of this fairly large dead ash tree, you can see there's some quite big ones. But again, doing the knuckle test, they're not totally solid. That one's crumbling away and he's soaking wet. That one, again, pretty wet, crumbling away. A little bit of a dry layer there. But you want ones that have just not been, that are rock solid, like that. But inevitably, when you find one, you'll almost certainly find a load more. But these ones, sadly, the bugs have got to, and now the moisture's got in, so they're fairly useless. So here is a young, not very mature, this one is not ready. But from the test, it's absolutely solid, it's incredibly hard. But where it's so young, it's got this brown colour to it. This is not going to be ready for another season or so, so probably this time next year this will start to turn black. And as it will then obviously begin to spore, that's when it will become ready. Next winter this will be ideal. It will obviously be a little bit bigger as well. But the young, not ready to use ones for fire lighting are brown or sort of maroon colour. But keep an eye on them and keep a log of where you've seen them, so that next year when you come back to them they should be ready to pick. They're a saprobic fungus, which means it feeds on dead or decaying organic matter. It's also a flask fungi, which means that the spores, rather than released down, they actually release the spores outwards from the fruit body here out to the side. So if you did a spore print, you'd find that the spore print is actually out to the side. They average kind of 2 centimetres up to 10 centimetres across. And the spores are usually produced about late spring, all the way through to autumn, but they don't spore in winter, but you can obviously see them in winter, and the best time to harvest them is in winter. Some more brown ones running all the way up this tree. They're not ready yet, but they will be ready next year, and hopefully if the bugs don't get inside them, they'll stay solid and they'll be ready to harvest. Typically you can find the cramp ball fungus or Daldinia Concentrica on dead or decomposing ash trees, and the best way to identify ash, aside from its bark, which is fairly a sort of greyish, fissured greyish look to it, the best way to identify it is in winter time the buds are black, and that's a really common feature with ash. Sadly, here in the UK, our ash trees are being affected by what's called ash dieback, which is killing off thousands of trees a year. So they are falling very regularly and they're having to be felled regularly. What that does mean is there's going to be more Daldinia Concentrica growing, you know, they're going to be more common sight as the ash trees fall, but it's a sad sight for ash, which has a very historic value here in the UK. So the ones that I've picked here I already know are a bit rotten and they're too wet to light. So I've kept some from last season. So I'm going to show you back at the cabin in the woods how to light these and other cool things that our ancestors did years ago. So I tend to keep the cramp balls in this sealed jar, and what it does is it just, once you've dried them out, it just keeps any moisture from going back in them. You can see that it's nice and light brown here, and the moment this is out in the air on damp days, that's going to start absorbing moisture and it's going to be less likely to catch a spark. So I tend to keep them in a sealed jar, and that way I know that they're going to stay dry, and whenever I need them I can just take a few out and put them in a tinder pouch or a tinder bag and take them with me on my adventures. And whenever I need to get a fire going, I know that I've got a pretty staple way of lighting a fire by just getting a spark onto the cramp ball here. But they are mostly found, as I said earlier, on dead or decomposing ash trees and the occasional beech tree. I've personally never seen one on a beech tree, mostly on ash trees. You can either light them as they are whole like this if they're large ones, or if you want you can break them up. That's pretty much enough to get a fire going for me. Obviously once you start blowing the coal through it stronger, it's going to burn quicker. But I'll probably break this up, this large one, into 3 or 4 pieces and take those along in a tinder bag ready for fire lighting. But you can see those concentric rings there, those lines, and that's why it's called Daldinia Concentrica. So the great thing about cramp balls is once you get the spark onto the inner material, it actually, you don't need to be in a rush to get a fire going. Now this is quite an awkward angle, so might take a few goes. That went. There's one spark there, see? I'm just blowing it to get it established, and that's all I need to do now. You can see the wind's doing the work, and it's actually spreading quite fast, so I can just leave that, and that will, on a windy day that's going to burn quicker, but that will burn and smoulder for a long time. You can see I'm not even touching it, and the wind's just doing the work for me, and it's amazing, really. It's an amazing piece of nature, the way that works, and you can see why they call it the coal fungus, because it just smoulders. Now this isn't going to get to a flame on its own. We're going to need some tinder material to get this started. But for example, if this was burning out, I was carrying it with me to a different camp maybe, and it was starting to burn low, then all you'd need to do is grab another piece of cramp ball, and I probably won't even need to blow this, but this has no ember on this one, and if I just hold it here, the heat will transfer from that. There we go. I'm not blowing, I'm just letting the wind do it. And as I turn this in a minute, I'm just letting the wind do it. There we go. It's now transferred to that one. So you can just transfer your coals and your embers wherever you go, and that's what's amazing about this fungus. Now I'm going to put this out, this one, because I actually want to keep it. So to put it out, just grab some mud, hold it there, keep it nice and tight just to stop it smouldering, and then give it a shake. And actually you've got to really check that it's blown out, because it will just keep smouldering through. Now this is ready to go into a tinder bundle. One of the main reasons I like using bracken for tinder is because at this time of year, although it's dead, it's fairly high off the ground, unlike tinder such as dried or dead grass, which is low to the ground, which is going to keep that moisture. Where it's a couple of feet off the ground, the leaves tend to stay quite dry, or at least they dry the quicker than the grass would down below. So whatever tinder you need, or you think you need, especially here in the UK in winter where it's damp, get yourself twice as much, because the chances are there's still going to be some moisture in here, and you're going to need that extra volume to be able to keep your tinder dry and warm as well, and build that heat up. So this is the bracken. I'm just curving it round into a bit more of an actual bird's nest shape. A little bit of a hole there, and then I can fold this all around to shape it how I like, but there's just a little hole there, and that's where I'm going to put my burning cramp ball fungus. Here's my cramp ball, it's glowing away. I'm going to place it in there and just gently build the heat up. You might be able to see that in there. I'm going to step back just so you guys can see. See how there's getting more smoke? As that smoke gets thicker and yellow, that's when the flame will be ready to come. I'm just wafting it to gather some breath. It's close now. Still waft because it's bracken. And there you go. Fire by the crampball fungus. Pretty awesome little fungus. I'll let that burn out. But as you can see, that bracken is a flash tinder, and you do need quite a bit of it. Don't worry about the forest floor. This will all burn out. It's soaking wet here. But see how that smoke goes really thick and yellow, and it tends to do that with tinder. Just before you're getting a flame, when you see that thick yellow smoke, don't give up, keep going. That means you're really, really close. So then I would just add my twigs, my dry twigs, and kindling. So although it's a flash tinder, bracken does actually retain its heat for a while. So that's just looped on. And the cramp ball's there. A little bit close to the actual balls, but yeah, there we go to the side. And I can walk with that and transport that coal fungus wherever I need. And then when I need a fire, I can just unattach it and take that fire with me. There we go. Now let's swish it around and see what it does. Wow, look at it now. So I've just forced a load of oxygen into it, and it started to light half the fungus straight away. So naturally, you wouldn't keep walking and swishing it because you're going to burn through your ember. You would just let it barely smoulder and then carry it along with you. The cramp ball fungus. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Thanks so much for watching. If you're interested in more bushcrafts and survival skills specific videos, I've popped a playlist in the description below, and I'll pin it in the top comment. And as usual, for any of your outdoor gear, check the links in the description below or head to taoutdoors.com. I'll see you guys in the next episode.